Before I start this video, if you've not subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button. If you like the video, please click the like button, share this out through social media, and leave comments in the comments section. Last week, I dropped a video discussing a number of announcements that the Josh D'Amaro company had made, and I also covered an article that was trying to gaslight everyone into believing that the early box office projections for The Mandalorian and Grogu were amazing. I basically showed you that those box office numbers were actually horrible, and if they held true, it would be the worst opening domestically for any Star Wars movie. And sure enough, a few days later, surprisingly enough, we get an article from MSN that is kind of backtracking on all that. So let's take a look at it. The new Star Wars update has fans very concerned about the franchise. It's safe to say that The Mandalorian and Grogu is one of the most anticipated movies of the year. It's not. Not at all. If you looked at the ratios for the trailers, nobody's interested in this. I don't know who this movie is for anymore, really. The shippers aren't going to come out for it because there's nobody to ship. And the blue-haired freaks and crazy people aren't going to come out because it isn't inclusive enough. But let's go back to the article. Now, that sentence comes with its own caveats, as we will discuss shortly. But you can't argue with the fact that there's a lot of excitement for the return of Mandalorian and Grogu. There is absolutely no excitement for this. Not at all. I don't know what fantasy world this writer is living in, but there is none. Nobody cares about this movie. Oh, yeah, and it's Star Wars we're talking about here, so the audience is there. Nope, the audience is gone. Poof, goodbye, adios, checked out. Apathy is set in. Nobody's going to show for this movie. I've said from the beginning that I thought this was going to make about 350 million. I actually thought it was going to come under under Solo, a Star Wars tale. Hashtag Solo lost money. So it's looking more and more like I'm going to be right in the wheelhouse with my projection. I think this thing's going to top out at about 350 million by the time we get to the release date at the end of May. But let's continue on with the article. That being said, there are some questions about just how much of an audience will go and see the upcoming film. Oh, that's easy. It's not going to be much. I mean, Star Wars is usually front loaded anyway, especially these days. And if you're looking at 71 million projected right now domestically, yeah, you're screwed. And if it has the typical drop off of like 66%, yeah, it will struggle to get to 300, and it definitely won't get above 350. That's both related to this particular movie, while also being an ongoing question when it comes to the Star Wars franchise itself. That's because Kathleen Kennedy has completely fucked it up and now is walking out the door, and hopefully she'll get no goodbye except for a kick in the ass. This new update regarding its projected release numbers aren't the strongest of indicators that those worries aren't fair. No, actually, they're indications that those worries are exactly fair. The Mandalorian and Grogu projected an earn lowest opening for a Disney Star Wars movie on release weekend. Boy, that is a really weird sentence. Okay, according to box office forecasters, Box Office Theory, The Mandalorian and Grogu is early tracking to earn around 70 to 85 million in its opening domestic weekend at the box office. That would set a record for the lowest opening for a Star Wars movie during the Disney era. No, the Disney, uh, yeah, Disney Star Wars era. Yeah, there we go. Coming in far, far, far behind all three films in the Skywalker saga, but it won't be that far. Actually, 85 million if they hit the very top of that projection, which they won't. Like I said, I saw other ones projecting like 71 million. Um, but if it hits 85, it will barely beat out Solo, a Star Wars story. Barely by like less than a million. 215's The Force Awakens opened to 247.9 million domestically. Yeah, and that was a lot of artificial because people hadn't seen a Star Wars movie for what, 14 years? Was Revenge of the Sith 2001? 2002? It'd been definitely over a decade. I don't remember exactly when Revenge of the Sith came out. Let's see. While 2017's The Last Jedi opened to 220 million, and 2019's trilogy closer, The Rise of Palpatine, debuted with 177 million. You notice how that falls down from The Force Awakens to Rise of Skywalker. There's a dip of 70 million, basically 71 million domestically between those three movies in 4 years. That's a huge drop in my opinion. Granted, those three films were part of a 9-film long Skywalker trilogy. No, they weren't. No. They're not part of the Skywalker saga. Sorry. Not at all. Released prior to the pandemic and well before the highs and lows of franchise's Disney Plus era. No, it was the beginning of the highs and lows for the Disney Plus era. It's what started the highs and lows. And by the way, I don't know where the highs were. You name the highs. Maybe like season 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian. You name something else that was higher. That was a high. Was it The Alkalite? It wasn't Skeleton Crew. It wasn't the Book of Boba Fett. It wasn't Obi-Wan Kenobi. It wasn't Ahsoka. I don't know what the highs were outside of what I mentioned. So it's easy to see why they did so well. No, it's not. And by the way, only one of those three movies made money. The other two lost money. And like I said, hashtag Solo lost money too. And with that in mind, Star Wars fans are understandably defending The Mandalorian and Grogu's early tracking numbers as it's a very difficult movie with different targets and goals released at a very different time. All of that doesn't mean anything. What matters is that the fans have walked away, they've reached apathy, they don't care about this anymore. That's what matters. Still, though, there are fans out there hoping that that it will perform better than that, as the fate of the franchise beyond its TV era is relying on cinematic success. Yeah, I agree with that. When this movie bombs and after they release Starfighter, I pretty much believe that that will be it. I think Lucasfilms will shutter probably for a very long time. Hopefully they will clean out all the blue-haired insane mental patients that have been running Lucasfilm, and they will try and start over, and hopefully they will decanonize all this crap. It's rather ironic that it's all resting on the franchise's biggest TV stars. Oh, God, that is pathetic. If It's actually an accurate statement because none of the other TV shows are doing nearly as good as The Mandalorian. Even season three, I think, beat almost all the shows for viewing, and season three was crap. The Mandalorian is one of the most successful Star Wars shows. No, it's basically the only successful one of all, kicking off the saga's Disney Plus era back in 2019. It has run for 3 seasons thus far, and Lucasfilm's decision to pivot to the silver screen instead of producing a fourth season, leaving fans surprised. I'm not surprised at all because they couldn't put anything out there. Um, they are no closer to having a script for the unnamed Rey movie. They've kicked to the curb all these different ideas for trilogies. I'm not going to go through the list because it's ridiculously long. But they didn't have anything else that they could put out there. And that would have meant what? Another 2 years before Starfighter comes out there? Yeah, the franchise would have been rested for almost 10 years. That would have been a ridiculous amount of time. With that in mind, the film needs to succeed in order for this particular part of the franchise to carry on. It's unclear at this point in time whether The Mandalorian Season 4 will happen at some point down the line, or if the film spinoff is successful, the story will continue in another sequel. Yeah, here we go. Dave Filoni, the fig in a cowboy hat, has long-term plans to wrap up the stories of the Mandoverse with its own crossover movie, bringing together the cast of The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, The Book of Boba Fett, Skeleton Crew. And if the Mandalorian and Grogu struggles, that could put an end to those plans. I sincerely hope it puts an end to those plans, because that's going to be a shitty-ass movie. And right now, like Ryan Kennel said, the fig in the cowboy hat, he's been responsible for a lot of this. I realize Kathleen Kennedy gets a lot of the blame for what's going on here, but almost equally, Dave Filoni's been the creative in charge. The fig in the cowboy hat has been creatively in charge, especially on the Disney minus side, for such a very long time. All these shows are his children, especially Ahsoka, that shitty ass show. And he's been basically running the show and running it into the ground. And I really hope it shelters. I really hope he's fired. And I really hope he never directs or writes for movies again. That's my solemn wish. All that being said, there's something that is working in the upcoming film's favor. It's relatively low budget. The Mandalorian and Grogu reportedly have a budget of between 130 and 166 million.
Oh, you can smell the shit from 5 miles away.
Yep. That is BS. Complete and utter BS. I don't believe it for a second. If it's between 130 and 166 million when the real numbers come out, I will personally eat the hat I'm wearing. I'm guessing it's probably more like 200 million. But even let's play the game. What's between 130 and 166? Let's see. You got 36, so 18. 138. All right, I'm sorry, 148. 148 million. Let's say it costs 148 million to do that movie, which would be the least expensive movie far and away for Star Wars Disney. Not even close. Everything else was over 200 million easily. Solo, a Star Wars tale, was 275 million. So you're saying that this is going to cost half of Solo? I don't believe it. Not one bit. But let's do the math here. So 148, I'll be kind and generous and say 100 million for marketing, even though they spent like 10 million on that stupid just on that stupid Super Bowl commercial. That thing cost 10 million. That ridiculous thing that everybody panned the shit out of. So, I'm going to be really nice and say that the total cost is 248. So, you do by 2, you get 496. It basically needs 500 million to break even. I said it'll be lucky to get the 350. So this thing's probably, if everything stays the way it should, if there are no surprises, like I said, I think the numbers are going to continue to go down. The projections are going to continue to go down. I expect this opening haul for the 3-day for Memorial Day to be 65 million. That's about where I'm guessing. It could be worse than that. It could be better. But I'm guessing it's going to downward project from this 70 to 85. By the way, I was reading 71. But fine, 70 to 85. So what's the half of that? 77, 78. Yeah, I think it's going to get down into the 60s by the time we're starting to see, when we get a better idea of how many people are buying pre-tickets for this. And that'll just be a disaster. I mean, if it gets down in the 60s, it might not even hit 300 million domestic. If the domestic is under 70, because I don't think this is going to have a lot of play internationally either. So if it opens that week, you can pretty much bet it's going to struggle to get the 300 million. And like I said, there's just not an audience out there. But let's go back to the article. Let's see. If the domestic opening weekend numbers hold, there's a pretty strong chance that it could still clear the number when you factor the in international numbers on the weekend of release. No, like I said, I don't think the international numbers are going to be that great. Remember, Star Wars is a globally successful franchise, and The Mandalorian is a globally successful series. Is it? Where's your receipts? Where's your receipts that shows that people are internationally are watching Disney minus and specifically have been watching The Mandalorian? I want to see those receipts. I really do. There's little reason to think that the international market won't make up a huge part of the film's worldwide takings. You obviously haven't been paying attention to the international market lately. The international market has basically gone to shit when it comes to a lot of these movies. I mean, you're lucky if you're getting 1-to-1 ratios sometimes. There's a lot of movies. It used to be like 2 to 3 to 1 international to domestic. And now a lot of times it's pretty much even, which is why you're not getting movies hitting a billion or hitting a billion anymore. And with the film likely to have a break-even point of around 300 to 320 million, no, that math is incorrect. I just told you what the real math is. They are not including marketing at all. That is just a gross estimate of what the production cost is. And like I said, I don't believe those production numbers at all. It should turn a profit. No, it won't. It'll lose anywhere from 75 to 100 million. That's my guess. Of course, at this point in time, this is all just conjecture. Yes, it is. The one thing we will agree on, it is all conjecture. As we get closer, we'll see whose conjecture is more accurate. Official box office projections will be made once tickets for the upcoming release go on sale. I can't wait. And considering that May 22nd marks the beginning of the Memorial Day weekend, there's a pretty strong chance the Mandalorian and Grogu will come in on a higher end of any expectations. No, there's not. And like I said, uh, Star Wars, or I'm sorry, Solo, a Star Wars tale, that released on Memorial Day weekend too. Let's go back and take a look at that. Yeah. See that? May 23rd, 2018. That was a Memorial Day weekend. And there was the domestic opening, 84,420,489. So no, Memorial Day weekend is not a guarantee. Not at all. And look at that monstrous budget for that piece of garbage movie, $275 million. That's why I'm saying there's no way this came in under 200 million. This is more gaslighting. This is more cover. The real number will eventually come out and it'll be a lot more, except everybody will have forgotten by then that they told you it was between 130 and 166 million. That lying fig in a cowboy hat. All right, back to the article. Let's see. We're hoping in this case, because this is the way. Yeah, you hope in one hand and shite in the other and see which one fills up first. The Mandalorian and Grogu arrives in movie theaters on May 22nd, 2026. Well, this was a pretty crappy, useless article, if I do say so myself. I mean, it did tell a few truths. Specifically, it did say that it is troubling the early box office projections. And like I said, I think as we get closer, those box office projections will get more troubling. I don't see this trending upward. I see it trending downward. That's just my prediction based on everything that is happening in Star Wars. Lucasfilm is in chaos. The gay fig in a cowboy hat, he can't do anything. A lot of this is his fault. He should have stuck to doing cartoons. He was better at that. He can't tell stories. He's had his hands and fingers into everything for quite a while now, just like Ryan Cannell has basically nailed it from the beginning. So massive props to him. He wasn't fooled at all. He knew everything from the start. He realized what the main problems were, and he realized it wasn't all Kathleen Kennedy. And now that Kathleen Kennedy is basically gone, notice that the problems aren't fixed. This is going to be a total Dave Filoni fig in a cowboy hat movie. And it's going to suck. And he's not going to have Kathleen to hide behind this time. I mean, the only thing that may not suck is Starfighter, and that's because I don't think the gay fig has any hand in this. He's just going to have his name on there as an executive producer, but I don't think he's actually doing anything with this. I don't think he has anything to do with the story. I don't think he has anything to do with the directing or the producing. At least we can pray he doesn't, because maybe we might get a decent Star Wars movie, even though it'll just be a one-off. I mean, this is the equivalent of Deadpool and Wolverine and Spider-Man No Way Home. If it's good, Starfighter will be a one-off. It's not saving Disney Star Wars. And with that, I think I'm going to wrap up this video. So like my father told me when I was 18 years old, the free video's over. Get out.